We're Josh and Kai, students of Creative Media and Journalism course.
And we're joined by two members of the Safeguarding team, Jane and Luke. So, can you tell us what child exploitation is?
So, child exploitation, or also known as CE, is usually the abuse of a child or maltreatment where they're potentially groomed or used for someone else's gratification. That may be buying them gifts, coercing children to take part in criminal activity, as well as sexually exploiting them as well.
And what is the impact on this?
The impact on a young person can be ranging anything from kind of physical abuse to actually, having injuries, being sexually assaulted. I think the main impact that we see is on mental health and definite changes in behaviour in young people. You can definitely see those in young people that have been exploited.
So what are the types of CE that we should be aware of?
So we have child sexual exploitation, which is known as CSE. So that looks at the exploitation of those under the age of 18, where they're coerced into sexual activity, usually groomed to, so as Jane said, buying gifts, being manipulated into sexual activity, whether that's by an individual or in a gang, and usually happens over time where the young person may not necessarily be being sexually exploited, and they think they're in a relationship. One thing to note is those that are under 18, even though a 16 to 18 can consent, it may be that they're not aware that they're in an abusive relationship and being exploited.
And what does this look like?
So one common model that you see is the boyfriend model, where an older male will start a relationship and make it look like they're in a consensual relationship. What can then happen is that gifts are given, they're given money or lots of new clothes, handbags, things like that, if we're thinking predominantly about females. And then they're taken to parties, there's drugs, there's drink. And then this boyfriend model encourages them to have sex with other people. And that's when the abuse happens. But because they've been given gifts, they've been given items, they feel obliged, but they don't see it as abuse because they're in a relationship, they love that person. And that's where it can be very difficult to break that cycle.
So if this doesn't happen online, are there any other ways that we should know about?
So as I said, with the sort of like boyfriend, girlfriend model, you have also got that online version as well, where they may be encouraging sharing of images. So they will be sharing images that are not necessarily of themselves. They may have found them on other platforms, got them from other young people that they're abusing, and then they're encouraging them to share that. And that could also be from the LGBTQ plus community who are exploring their sexuality online. Feels like a safe environment. It feels anonymous in a way. But at the other end of that platform, you don't know who that person is. And then that's when the exploitation can happen. You need to send me more images or I'm going to release yours. And that's when it can become very dangerous and also very difficult to get out of or to admit, especially for some young gay people.
Yeah, and how does this start?
So it can start in a variety of situations. As Jane said, it could be online, but it could be in person as well. So gangs, individuals tend to target especially vulnerable young people. That could be within the local community, that could be on public transport, it could be that they're being coerced into a gang, so there's a bit of profiling going on, they're groomed, that gang initiation, and then they're stuck in that cycle. So there's a range of signs and indicators that we'll touch on later for people to look out for, and obviously looks at how that can possibly present as child exploitation.
And I think one of the other things that we're hearing lots of reports about is about the cost of living crisis, and that young people are being targeted in the community on their way to and from school and college by these gangs to do drug running, to do those kind of things. And they're offering to buy them very simple things like a breakfast, a new coat. So they will look for those vulnerabilities. And unfortunately, they're very smart in doing that. But yeah, because of this cost of living, there are a lot of young people that are being sucked into those because they can't afford the luxuries or even the simple items at home. But yet there's these people that are offering them that.
And when you say young people, how young are we looking at?
As young as 8, so primary school age. So it could be that young person or child is vulnerable, and they've not got the knowledge, they're not streetwise, so they may think that this person is approaching me, being friendly, supplying me with gifts. And parents may not always be aware that this is happening. Again, going back to online grooming, it could be that a young person or a child is using social media, playing games on public chat forums, and that's an avenue where people can groom young people to be drawn into such activity.
So a recent study by the Children's Society estimates that 46,000 children in England alone. How big of an issue is it in South Essex?
I think it is a big issue in South Essex. I think with our proximity to London, where we know that there is a lot of gang activity in those boroughs, we know it travels down the C2C line, it comes through Greater Anglia as well. Especially in the summer months, we know how busy Southend alone can get. We've also got a large shopping centre. I think we have worked with young people in the past and supported them to break that cycle, move away from that. So in South Essex, it is an issue, and it's something that all professionals are aware of. We're aware of our networks. To actually put a number on it, I couldn't put a number on it, but we are aware of, how many young people are at risk. And I think that's why at South Essex College, we've got the Wellbeing and Safeguarding team, but we've also got college guardians at all of our campuses who work with our external networks so that we're aware of who these young people might be who could pose a risk.
So now we know the types of CE, what signs should we look out for?
So there's various signs and indicators. So with child sexual exploitation, it could be that a young person is showing sexualised behaviour, or they've got unexplained injuries such as bruising or bleeding. It could be that they've got gifts that parents or carers don't know where they've come from, so they're unexplained. It could be a range of factors, so changing behaviour, changing appearance, mood that's out of character. That all can present as possible signs that a young person is being sexually exploited.
And I think when it's online sexual exploitation, you might see secrecy around phones, hiding in their room, not wanting to kind of engage with the family as they may have done. They might be arranging to meet people that you've never heard of before, and that could be the same with kind of your peer group as well. If you're thinking about your friends kind of saying they're meeting people that you're not aware of, and they're quite secret when you say, oh, who's that? So that can kind of be the online where actually it's then going a step further, that abuse might become more.
And with criminal exploitation, that could be drug running, would have heard the term county lines, so transporting drugs from one area to another. And there may be key words that you may hear, such as like a burner phone, trap house, bando, where young people are groomed into transporting drugs, selling drugs. So they'll be sent to a trap house by a gang, and with a large quantity of drugs, have to sell that before they're able to leave. There are cases where that gang has organised for that young person to be robbed, so that young person thinks that they owe that gang now, and they're stuck in that cycle. So yeah, in terms of keywords, it may be that you're hearing friends or people in the street talking about trap houses, bandos, burner phones, and they're just keywords to look out for if the young person is being groomed or within a gang being exploited.
And I think parents who are seeing their young people come home, it might be that they automatically run up to their room, and that could be that they are, involved in stashing, whether that's money, weapons or drugs. And then I think it's also parents looking out for new items of clothing that they wouldn't necessarily have given them the money to go and buy, especially if it's not round birthdays and Christmas. It's quite rare for young people to kind of get new clothes throughout the year, isn't it? So I think it's parents, friends kind of looking at, it's like, they're a nice pair of trainers, how did you get them? And that's when you can also get other young people grooming their peer group to say, well, actually, it's quite easy money. All you've got to do is take this to there. And it sounds very simple, but actually it's a very, very dangerous situation to be in.
And in regards to students accessing support, if they're like a victim of child exploitation or know someone who is, where can they go?
There's lots of places that they can go. And I think it's about any young person finding that trusted adult. And at South Essex College, I would hope that any member of staff would be that trusted adult. So that they can disclose and say, I think this is happening to me, whether it's online, in person, or whether it's county lines and criminal exploitation. That member of staff would then be able to refer into the Wellbeing and Safeguarding team, which me and Luke are members of. And then we would be able to support that young person by working with local authority, potentially the police. A lot of people are quite wary of the police, but the work that they do in this area is very supportive, it's very protective. It's not about criminalising the young people, it's about making sure that they're safe. And I think parents can also reach out to the Wellbeing and Safeguarding team if they're worried about any changes in behaviour, really.
Yeah, and if a student is not ready to disclose in terms of staff in college, there is external support as well. So we have the NSPCC who are able to provide advice, support and guidance around child exploitation. You've got Childline, the Children's Society, but also targeted young people is Fearless, is a good charity.
So what would, say, I do if I was worried about some of my friends?
I think the main thing is to keep that friendship going as much as you can, but ensure your own safety. Make sure that they know that you're always there and that they can talk to you. The other thing is to encourage them to come and talk to the Wellbeing and Safeguarding team, or to talk to their parents and support them in that process as well. It might not be comfortable, but actually having a friend stick by you whilst you disclose something like this just might help them on that journey to being able to break that cycle and move away from whatever abuse it is, but also support them in the long run as well.
So what methods do you guys take to spread awareness about child exploitation?
So we have a range of ways that we promote and make sure that people are aware of the signs of child exploitation. We include it in our staff training so that we have a staff workforce that are aware of this, but we also have tutorials as well. And the tutorial programme covers everything from kind of peer-on-peer abuse, child exploitation, county lines, and that makes sure that we've got a good understanding and knowledge of the signs to look out for.
And within our team, every year we promote Child Exploitation Awareness Day. That's the 18th of March every year. So the aim is to equip young people with the knowledge around exploitation and signs to look out for, as well as raising general awareness around how to keep themselves safe, notice anything that's of concern, an open conversation. So I aim to promote that on campus in person, via Teams or our Moodle pages, where you can access information or come to someone if you need advice and guidance around that issue.